Imperfect. This block is rejected. Move it aside and start again.
Rome was built on stone, ambition, and water. Long before the city ruled continents, before emperors carved their names into marble, everything depended on a quiet miracle: clean, steady, unstoppable water. Without it, Rome would have remained a dusty hillside settlement. With it, she became eternal. In 144 AD, one man carried this responsibility more than any general or senator. Not a ruler, not a warrior, but an engineer. He woke before sunrise in a cramped workshop where scrolls lay piled like fallen towers. The air smelled of charcoal and warm parchment. Drawings of arches covered the walls. Graceful curves, perfect keystones, mathematical ratios. His hands, calloused from years of measurement and fieldwork, traced the inked lines with practiced familiarity. Every morning began the same way: checking, recalculating, refining. Nothing could be left to chance, not when millions depended on the result. The city outside stirred to life. Blacksmiths hammered steel. Merchants shouted prices. Columns of legionaries marched toward the training grounds. Rome's heartbeat was loud, confident, but fragile. The engineer knew that the great metropolis could thrive only as long as its veins carried water. If the flow stopped, life itself would wither. He climbed a hill still wrapped in morning mist and planted his surveyor's staff firmly into the soil. From here, the landscape stretched in soft waves: valleys, forests, distant mountains. He measured the gradient carefully, noting the earth's subtle rise and fall. The aqueduct had to descend at a perfect angle, almost invisible, for miles. Water obeyed no emperor. It answered only to gravity. At the quarry, he walked among workers whose skin was caked in white dust. Enormous limestone blocks lay scattered like the pieces of some dismantled giant. Each block needed precise shaping. A single crack, a misplaced chisel, a rushed cut, and an entire arch could collapse. The engineer tapped the stones with a bronze hammer, listening for flaws. Workers watched him anxiously, but he smiled when the sound rang pure. The foundation was strong. Construction rose slowly, but boldly. Wooden scaffolding climbed toward the sky, lashed together with thick ropes that strained under the weight of ambition. Cranes creaked, pulleys groaned, dust rolled across the valley. The engineer moved among the workers, steadying beams, tightening knots, pointing to chalk markings. He knew every inch of the structure, every joint, every mortar line. But progress attracted attention, not all of it welcome. Senators visited, eager to attach their names to the project. Imperial envoys brought deadlines carved more from politics than logic. Some spoke of glory, others of pressure. The engineer understood their hunger for recognition, but he also understood stone. And stone did not care about ambition. Water would expose every flaw, every shortcut, so he ignored them. Then came the storm. A monstrous front swept over the valley, drowning scaffolds in sheets of rain. Winds ripped planks from their bindings. Rivers of mud carved through the worksite. Workers fled for shelter as lightning clawed across the sky. By morning, the damage was overwhelming. Collapsed scaffolds, shattered beams, stones lying cracked and useless in the mud. But before the sun fully rose, the engineer arrived. Soaked, expression steady, he assessed the destruction piece by piece. Instead of despair, he offered direction. Instead of blame, he offered solutions. When he raised his voice, it wasn't in anger, it was in determination. The men saw that he had not broken, so neither would they. Yet nature was only one enemy. The mountain was another. For the aqueduct to work, water had to pass directly through a massive ridge of stone. Two teams began digging from opposite sides. torches barely illuminating the narrow tunnels. The air was thick with dust, the rhythm of chisels steady but tiring. Miscalculations could doom the entire project. If the tunnels didn't meet, the aqueduct would fail. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The engineer visited the site constantly, checking angles, adjusting direction by inches. Workers doubted it was possible. The mountain felt endless, but then, late one afternoon, a faint hollow sound echoed through the chamber. A second knock answered it. The teams quickened their efforts until suddenly, with a final strike, the wall between them crumbled inward. Light spilled through. Voices shouted triumphantly, echoing through the stone like thunder. They had met perfectly, a triumph few would ever understand. With the mountain conquered, the aqueduct neared completion. Arches stretched across valleys, casting long shadows across the earth. Channels lined with clay tiles curved elegantly across hills. Settling tanks began to take shape, silent guardians ensuring clean water. As the final pieces came together, excitement spread through the workforce. They were not merely building stone, they were building a future. At last came the moment they had worked toward for years. Workers gathered at the mountain spring, hands trembling with anticipation. The engineer nodded, and the barrier was removed. Clear cold water surged into the channel, sparkling under the sunlight. It flowed through the tunnel, across ridges, under arches, and toward Rome with steady momentum. The sound was soft yet powerful, the heartbeat of a city reborn. When water reached the first Roman fountain, the city erupted. Children splashed in the basins, merchants laughed, elderly citizens wept openly. Bathhouses filled again, bakeries steamed with renewed vigor, and public squares shimmered with flowing water. Rome felt alive, vibrant, renewed. The emperor honored the engineer with praise and gifts, celebrating him as a savior of the capital. But the engineer accepted with quiet humility. He did not build the aqueduct for glory. He built it because Rome needed it. Because without water, the empire's greatness meant nothing.